Well, hi everyone, this is Dr. Schroeder with this week's video introduction to week number 2 of our course in the Theoretical Principles of Education and Teaching. And a really good start to class. Of course, this first week was primarily involved with us getting to know each other a little bit and making introductions in the class. Interesting makeup in this particular class. We have several people from the West Coast, which is sort of novel to me. Usually when I'm teaching for Sacred Heart, most of the time the students are located almost exclusively on the East Coast. So that makes it kind of interesting. We have different geographic perspectives, which hopefully will make for a interesting class. The discussion question this week focused on this very broad overview, kind of a broad start, talking about the philosophical underpinnings of institutions and nursing programs and why that's important for a nurse educator. Unless you've worked or taught for different schools, or unless you've been a student at different schools, sometimes it's difficult to see that there really is a difference between one school in one area with one location with one particular philosophical framework. And in other words, because at the bottom line is that we all teach essentially the same thing, whether I'm teaching for Sacred Heart University or for another school. The content that I teach is not drastically different in the content areas that I teach. Nursing is nursing, and so the content itself is pretty consistent. However, the philosophy that underlies that knowledge and the emphasis that is given to particular parts is really what's important. Some schools have a very heavy research focus, and so when you get into a bachelor's and master's programs, you tend to focus a lot on writing either in a particular style or writing in a particular way that would lend itself to research, or most of the projects, most of the written evaluations in class are in the form of papers or something that is going to show kind of this academic level and skill set. Other schools, projects may be focused more around practical experiences, developing a program in a women's health clinic or a children's clinic, for example. And that may be where the emphasis is, not so much on research, but that application in some form of either social justice or in outreach to a community. And others will use a theoretical framework of nursing that is more systems-oriented, like Orum's or Newman systems models, and others will be focused more on a caring model, like Watson's or Swearington's theories of caring, or Leininger's cultural transcultural theory of nursing. And then these will be where a lot of the assignments and where a lot of the focus of the learning is placed. And so it's important to teach for a school that matches your personal paradigm or your personal things that you feel are important, or at least that you're able to adapt your teaching style and adapt your student expectations to those to that philosophical foundation of that particular school. And so several of you had posted the missions and value statements from different schools and different institutions. And there is a certain amount of consistent language that you're going to find in virtually all of these mission statements, addressing diversity and cultural needs and student-centeredness is always very important. But again, it's kind of sort of those little fine differences that really sort of give a little bit of a clue as to what their philosophical underpinning really is. And sometimes it's not reflected in the mission statement at all. Sometimes it's more just a part of the school or a part of the culture and the faculty. So the reading covers it pretty well. The Billing and Halstead books in particular talks about the different roles of the faculty and a little bit of the historical context as to how we've gotten to where we're at in nursing education. And of course, the Institute of Medicine's report and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, their white paper or their paper on the future of nursing education is really guiding a lot of what we're doing nowadays in nursing education, with an increased focus on professionalism, professional academic preparedness, and CUSIN competencies. So it was a very nice jump off point for the class. And week number 2, you are going to be writing your first paper and submitting your first written assignment. That assignment is going to be your personal philosophy of teaching, and it will incorporate some of the discussion information from this first week of class and in week number 2. In week number 2, we're going to be talking more about introducing the concept of pedagogy and the different theoretical foundations that we actually use for teaching. You'll see a lot of the language that we use in education. It doesn't matter what level you're teaching at, whether you're teaching kindergartners or whether you're teaching at the graduate college level. The terms that we use tend to be the same, and they're sort of education focused. So a lot of the terms, that are found in different pedagogic models, oftentimes we'll talk about children. For example, progressivism. Progressivism is a form of education that developed in the 1930s. You'll be learning that this week when you read a little bit about John Dewey. But when you read some of Dewey's materials, sometimes it sounds like you're talking about education that just happens in like elementary school. And actually, a lot of the same concepts, although originally were applied at the elementary school level, do apply to us at the graduate and undergraduate level as well. For example, a Dewey component of the Dewey philosophy is this idea of experiential learning. And Kolb also describes experiential learning, that we learn through experience. And of course, that's reflected in our nursing education in clinical experiences. Nobody goes to nursing school without working in the hospital as well and applying that didactic knowledge from the classroom into the hands-on skill at the bedside. And so that's an example of how that terminology crosses over. But that will be discussion for class this week. I should have your first forum discussions graded by, I'm guessing, Wednesday of this week. I am recording this on Monday before 4th of July, so everybody have a wonderful 4th of July. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have fun things planned, and I hope that you keep it safe and sane and that you don't have too many issues with fireworks in your particular areas. And so I look forward to participating in class with you once again. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have, and we shall see you in the discussion forums.